The Conservative Party has actively prevented people who have the right to vote from voting, but by extending the right to vote to more people, the Labour Party would somehow be seeking to rig elections. How bent do you have to be to think that that is a valid position to pursue, a valid position to argue? Well, you have to be the editor of the Daily Mail. Labour accused of plot to reverse Brexit by giving millions of European workers in UK and British teenagers the vote. All right, quickly, how does that reverse Brexit? Spoiler alert, it just doesn't. But they hold their readers in such contempt that they think that by simply sticking it on the front page, it will somehow become true. So the Conservative Party has actively and successfully sought to prevent British citizens who have the right to vote from voting. I'm going to say that again because it's desperately important. The Conservative government has actively and successfully sought to prevent British citizens who have the right to vote from voting. And yet today, your corrupt right-wing media is attempting to persuade you that the Labour Party's attempt to give more British citizens the right to vote is an unfair or dishonest attempt to manipulate democracy. That's how stupid they think you are. Please prove them wrong. What damage has the right to vote done to you that makes you think younger people need protecting from it?
I think it's a very big responsibility to choose.
No, you keep using these words,
government.
but I'm focusing on the words you started with, which is protect. So what damage does the right to vote do potentially to a 17-year-old?
It changes the age of their legal responsibility.
Okay. Final time, what damage potentially does the right to vote do to a 17-year-old that we should all be protecting them from?
If we change the right to vote to 16,
The question's not complicated, is it? What is the damage that they need to be protected from?
James, it is complicated, and I'm sorry you're not really getting it.
Yeah, I am. That's exactly what people are taking away from this exchange, Francis.
Now, look, you've got children. What rights do you think they should have at 16 that they don't already have? Do you think they should have the right to vote?
Yes.
Do you think they can have a credit card?
If they've
do you think they can get married?
If they pass the credit checks, they can get married with my permission. But you keep changing the subject.
Can't. The law changed in February to change that.
You keep what my eldest is 17. You keep changing the subject.
Well, it's changed to 18, so she can't get married. She can't have a tattoo.
Married in January. I mean, what a ridiculous conversation. No wonder you're trying to change the subject. What is it that 17-year-olds need to be? And I'm not going to ask you again, so please pay my listeners the courtesy of answering the question that I'm asking you. What do they need to be protected from?
From being forced to be adults before they are 18.
Which is fair enough, Francis, but we probably could have worked this out before. Well, say it again then. They're being forced to be adults.
Children are children until they are 18
So they're going to be forced to vote, are they?
No.
So what are they being forced to do then?
To take legally binding decisions.
No, they don't have to vote.
Okay, fine. I just think children should be protected from
voting. What about driving?
Driving, they can drive at 17.
Yeah, what about that then? Shouldn't we be protecting them from road traffic accidents?
Well, possibly. Well, we should be protecting them from road traffic.
Have a great day.
I want to say it's so refreshing hearing your points of view.
I'll tell you what, Colin, I think there's quite a strong case for taking the vote away from some adults, let alone giving it to some teenagers.
You have literally hit it on the head there. What I explained to your producer just before I came on is I stay in Scotland. I was 18 by the point the law changed in Scotland that allowed 16 and 17-year-olds the right to vote. But what needs to be reminded is just because someone is given the right to vote, whether they're 16, 17 or 68, they're not forced to vote. It's it's putting it into their hands.
Just in the spirit of arguing with everybody, I'm not entirely opposed to the idea of compulsory voting. Actually, they have it in Australia, don't they? I think it does something to the franchise.
100%, and I think it is everyone's democratic right to vote. I mean, during the sort of first hour of listening this morning before yourself, there was a few callers that was like, oh my goodness, it's these young people, the earth is going to implode on us. what is the worst thing about
I've got a
these
tenor says they think Shamima Begum was entirely responsible for her actions when she went to Syria at the age of 15. But I didn't hear the calls you refer to, so it would perhaps be a little unfair to speculate. What should we be frightened of? What should we be worried about, do you think, on this? Apart from Lord Cruddas accidentally saying that it's a way of increasing the franchise or increasing democracy. What are they truly frightened of?
I mean, I think he's been very truthful there, but on the other side of it, I think there's this fear that there is young people who a lot of older voters may view as incapable or too immature. But, in my final years of high school, we had involvement in the Scottish Youth Parliament,
of course, yeah.
But modern studies, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But it is exciting. And, I mean, I know a lot of 17, 18-year-olds who thrive on that, the opportunity to finally get their voice put forward.
I'm trying to see the downside. I mean, I think you highlight many of the upsides. I'm genuinely trying to see the downside. Apart from you should be, as a 17-year-old, you should be protected from the right to vote, which I think we can all agree we didn't buy that. No, we didn't really nail that down.
No, I don't buy that. I think what one caller made, which I can understand, is that some people can be swayed. But having said that, there's some adults who can also be just as easily, swayed into fake news or dodgy policies. It is a two-way road. But that is the sort of beauty of democracy. That there's always going to be more than one side.
I think the age
but there's no. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
No, I was interrupting you. You carry on.
I just don't think there's anything. It isn't going to be Armageddon when 16 and 17-year-olds who are interested and who want to put their view forward. Of course, you'll get
are able and entitled to do so. I mean, unless there's some sort of weird population spike and we suddenly get a completely disproportionate number of 16, 17 and 18-year-old. Maybe if we'd won Eurovision on Saturday night, then 16 years from now, there'd be or 16 years plus 9 months from now, there'd be a whole new generation of people that could skew an election. I think the age of criminal responsibility in England and Wales, I can't remember what it is in Scotland, Colin, I think it's 10. So you want to talk about responsibility. You can't have the vote, but you can definitely get arrested.
I was really angered by this. I've always listened in, but I never really felt the need to call. But
go on.
From my perspective, I just think it's deployed by them. Whatever their scheme is or whatever is happening behind the scenes, they are clearly threatened by the idea of younger people being able to vote. And I was just saying to your colleague earlier, I do work in the hospitality sector and I do come across loads and loads of young people.
Yes.
And, having talked with them, they are well enabled. Some of them are still, they have so much wisdom, most of them more than most 40-year-olds you'd come across. So you'd hear them talk. They clearly want change. They want to be involved, be it in politics or whatever affects their lives. Yes, they're not paying taxes now, but they will soon pay taxes and they will soon get to that.
Some of them do. I mean, for a start, they pay VAT. And as you've just reminded us, in the hospitality sector, you can get a job after 16.
Absolutely.
Even if you're still in school, of course, you can get a job and you're paying tax, but you're not allowed to vote. This is where the American Revolution started, for goodness sake.
It's just ridiculous. And for me, I mean, I'm originally Nigerian, and I don't mean to be funny or put down my country, but it just reminds me of that plot when the government are threatened by this idea of younger people, having a voice and rising up to say something. Oh, we've got to find a way to shut them down, but we've got to do it in a way that doesn't look like we're being corrupt about it.
They may not even, I mean, as the last caller pointed out, it may not even make that much difference, but they're so desperate, these people.
But they're clearly threatened by that idea. So
yes.
there's clearly more to it,